everything that we think is what we create. That's the whole basis of the law of attraction. And so I think, for me, being conscious of what's going on underneath.
Welcome to True and Unpolished with Lydia Singleton and Mary Howe. Our intention is to uplift, amuse, and inspire you to create more of a life you'll love through sharing our always true and often unpolished conversations. Let's get authentic, everybody. The truth wants to be told, needs to be heard. It may seem like the whole world wants to believe in a lie. And so you wonder if you're crazy, if you are the only one who is thinking differently and desiring the real story to emerge. The other day, we're doing this big home renovation project, and my husband was feeling like really pressed for time. Like there was so much to do and what felt to him like so little time to do it. And honestly, if we polled the universe, everyone would say, you're right. That's way too much stuff to do in that amount of time. So, I mean, it really was this daunting thing. And I realized because I was more in a place of peace, because I wasn't having to do a lot of the hard work, that my experience of time and how it expands. And so I said to him, the mantra is time expands for me. And so he couldn't hear it in that moment, but I knew that he would. I knew as soon as he like got in his car and started to drive, like that would sink in. And so
Yeah.
he started that mantra, and 3 different things in the world of form happened. So that time really did expand for him. So both in the sense that he got so much done in this amount of time that didn't seem like that was possible. And also that he was trying to work toward this deadline of getting this one piece of equipment. And the guy called him and said, no, I can't get the equipment to you till next week. And that was this huge deal. So all of a sudden he had actual like clock time left, as well as feeling the expansion of time.
Because the pressure of having to get it done was removed because the equipment wasn't available.
Yeah, because the equipment was making the deadline, because it was a buddy who was going to have this equipment, but only for this 1 week.
Oh, okay.
So if Keith wanted to use this equipment, which was going to save us thousands of dollars, then he had to get all this stuff done before that week. And then the guy pushed it out a week.
Well, good.
Yeah.
One, I love affirmations or mantras. The thing is that everything that we think is what we create. That's the whole basis of the law of attraction. And so I think, for me, being conscious of what's going on underneath.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The unconscious thought. And another way to say that is it's what you believe that comes to the world of form. So, for example, if I had said to my husband, the mantra is time expands for me, and he was saying it in his mind, but it isn't actually something he believed, then time would actually shrink for him, because his belief behind the thought is that's not true. And I was fortunate, the way that I got there to that, knowing that time does expand, was I remember many years ago, I was watching a PBS special about Albert Einstein, and then they went into quantum physics kind of stuff, which is all very over my head. But they illustrated with pictures, and it's not something that I would be able to convey, but they illustrated in pictures how time literally is a construct of our mind. Like we have made it up. It isn't real.
Right.
And when I saw it, I went, oh, and so now I believed it. So when I said things like time expands for me, I believed it. And so it happened.
Esther Hicks says that a belief is just a thought that we keep thinking. And so whatever we believe, whether it's deeply held unconscious beliefs or, chosen beliefs, that those beliefs are really just thoughts. And the good news is that you can change your thoughts. And I think for me, that's the most empowering thing, because I remember the first time I became aware of that. And it was when I was in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And this is before I sort of had like a spiritual awakening or whatever. This was just me driving down the road. I was making a road trip by myself. I was kind of unhappy with my weight at the time. And I remember, I don't know where it came from. It's the magic of the universe, I guess. But I thought, I can change this. Hit me personally that I have the power to change it.
There is a woman who wrote her first book when she was like 90 years old, and she spent time in a concentration camp. And that book was so powerful to me because, when we talk about law of attraction, we say, well, wait a minute. I can't change my thought because this is what's happening. This is what's real. And she was in a
Mm,
concentration camp and chose to think about it differently. And so she had a different experience than those around her.
mm,
And she ultimately survived the concentration camp. So, what I'll say is, there are times where if you are in something, if you're in the middle of something, this is why you have to change the situation, accept the situation, or leave the situation. Because if you don't, you are going to be so bombarded by what's in front of you. So if I don't like my husband, that's not true, but if I didn't, and he is, every time I see him, I'm just seething. Well, that is affecting my belief system. It is affecting the energy with which that I'm putting out into the world, which ultimately comes back to me through law of attraction. And so you want to get to a loving place. So I have three choices. I can leave him, I can accept him for what exactly how he is, or I can change him. Now, that isn't, I know, as soon as I said it, I'm like, no, that isn't happening. So if you look at it and you go, well, definitely I can't change another person. So you got two options. You leave or you accept. Otherwise, you're going to keep vibrating there and he's going to keep showing up exactly the way that he always has, because that's what you believe.
in that example, you can change your beliefs, you can change your reactions, you can change
Mm-hmm.
your feelings. So one thing I think is important is because this episode is about the law of attraction, so let's define that. What is the law of attraction?
So the way that I would say it is that we are all energy in motion. And we think that we're solid, but if you go back to that science lesson way back when, where they showed you that um, the table was particles or the chair was particles, and your particles sat down on the chair, and they're different vibrations. So you actually are you think you're sitting on something. Uh, and so if you look at it in terms of that, we are literally energy. So what is energy? Energy, and how does it come about? There are different ways. And one of those ways is thought. And the law of attraction is talking about what you think about, you bring about. So what you believe in is going to affect your vibration, and that will affect your thoughts, and that will affect what you have in your experience. And you radiate an energy, and that energy comes back to you in the world of form. How would you define it, Mare?
So I would agree with all that. I think that the simplest way is that I would say is whatever we think about is what we create.
Right.
Now, after sort of learning about it, studying it, practicing, aligning with it and what I want, what I know now is that it's not our thoughts really. I mean, our thoughts trigger our emotions, but we can also change our feeling state without consciously changing our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So really what attracts, and I think you pretty much said this, that our feelings, how we're energetically vibrating,
Mm-hmm.
translates into feelings or emotions.
Mm-hmm.
That is what actually attracts
Yes. Yes.
things to us.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's important, like with mindfulness, to be conscious of our thoughts, aware of our thoughts, because our thoughts do trigger feelings. So your starting place can be with your thoughts or your beliefs, or your starting place can be with your emotions, and whichever you can actually change first, to begin to really sink in and to really start believing that's true, then that's going to have the greatest effect on attracting and aligning with what you actually want to create in your life.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's a loop. So, one of the ways that I think of it is that every time I have an emotion about something, that
Mhm.
emotion has a literal energy to it, and the energy has to go somewhere, and that energy will create a thought. The same is true in the opposite. The thought makes us have a reaction, and then there's an energy to it. And you can get on a loop where it's just you're attracting what you're thinking about, you're attracting how you feel, and then you get more thoughts that are just like it. And that's why when you really get, super frustrated with your husband, like when you just think, oh my gosh, well, how do I not like this person? And I used to like him like 3 weeks ago. It's because you're on in the loop. You're in the loop where you're just attracting more thoughts that create more feelings that are exactly the same. And so he is, and everything he does gets under your skin. And he can't show up differently for you because law of attraction is at play. He could show up differently for the rest of the world, and be exactly the thing that you want him to show up as for you.
That's the thinker and the prover.
Yeah.
So we have our thinker, and then our prover sets out. I mean, our egos, and this is the way that we've survived. Our egos want to be right, and so we look for evidence to prove that our thoughts or beliefs are true. And the magic of the universe, like it or not, is that whatever we focus on is what we are going to see. So if we're looking for evidence that we're right about this judgmental, angry, hatred filled thought or belief, then we are going to see it. I mean, it is it is the simple truth.
Right.
And so recognizing that we actually have a choice gives us so much power,
Yeah.
so much control over our suffering. And that's, to me, why it's so important, is recognizing that if I choose to change my beliefs, my feelings, being grateful is a good way to do that, then I can change my reality.
Yeah. So this is something that I have pondered and talked about, and I know how I think about it, but I'm curious to hear how you think about it, Mary. So is it as simple as what do you believe, and is that what you want to create? And if it's not, then you change it. Is it that simple?
Well, I think it is that simple, and it ain't easy.
Mm-mm.
I
Mm-mm.
mean, we can sit here and say, "Oh yeah, it's so simple." I I mean, it truly is. And I think the more I'm aware of it, the simpler it is. I mean, the more clear is what I mean by that. It's so simple and clear.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean easy. So the metaphor that I like to use for this kind of thing is a merry-go-round. So when you're on the playground, you're pushing the merry-go-round is going one direction, and you can stand on the side on the ground, and you can gently tap the merry-go-round, and it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
There's no effort to it. So if that's your negative, painful thoughts, then you don't have to do anything to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to stop it, and certainly if you want to get it going in the other direction, it requires a lot of effort. I mean, you have to, like, dig your heels into the ground, pull it, stop, and then you've got to use so much energy to get it going in the opposite direction.
Yes. Yes.
And then once it gets going, you just tap it. Now you still have to keep tapping at it. You still have to keep it going in the direction you want it to go. But once it's going in that direction, it's so much easier.
Yeah. And, that goes back to the very first sentence. And that is that, the world essentially is not built that way. That's what David's question was, but that's not the way the world works.
Right.
And the reason why the world doesn't work this way is because you don't believe it. So if you want this to
Right.
be true, then that's the answer. And what I like to give an example of is, if you think about when you were a baby, even when you were pre-verbal, but you were just learning verbiage, someone pointed to a car, or you lifted up a car, a toy car, and somebody said car. Now, before that moment, that thing existed, and it didn't have a name and didn't have all the connotations. Oh, a car takes us to work, and oh, we get in it and we learn to drive when we become 16, and all of these things that then further back up the fact that, yes, this is a car, and yes, this is what you do with it. The world told you that this is the way that it works. That's why we think this is the way that it works. And so, yes, Mary, that's exactly right. It is simple. Do you want it to be true? Then stop believing it. But it is also such a difficult thing to do. And the reason why is because we've been taught the difficult way, and we're trying to unlearn the difficult way.
Right. And okay, so this is something we hadn't planned on talking about, but I'm going to bring it up because it's something that we've alluded to in the past and we haven't really talked much about it, but you and I have had, I think we have kind of talked privately and come closer together, but I'm thinking about the collective energy right now. And that first thing you said at the beginning about truth, what I know the truth to be makes me crazy,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
And am I the only one?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I felt like that for a while. During the pandemic and all the other events going on in our world. And so one of the things that you said during that time, because we did not agree, and there were moments, especially in the first year or two, where we literally could not talk about it because it was triggering to both of us, because our thoughts and opinions about it were so far apart.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that you said to me was about this, Mary, whatever you're putting your attention on, say it's a conspiracy theory, whatever you're putting your attention on, you're going to create more of that. So I'm not willing to talk about this because I'm not putting my energy in that because I don't want to create it.
Yeah. Yeah. This goes.
And that was very valuable to me because you're exactly right about that. Whether you and I agree on what is going on underneath
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
the things that are going on in our world right now,
Mm-hmm.
we can definitely agree that whatever I put my attention on, whatever you put your attention
Yeah.
on, you're going to create more of that.
Yes. And that is why on things where you have a strong opinion, um, and you feel like you're right. And listen, you'll get a little hit of adrenaline by feeling you're right, but then ultimately you're upset. So let's say that you don't want the sky to be blue. Your opinion is your opinion is the sky is blue. There it is. And someone else comes along and they say, no, it's green. And you're like, no, clearly it's blue. And so you get a little hit of, oh, yeah, it's blue and I'm right and you're wrong. But then ultimately, you can't have fun with that person because you guys keep seeing this differently, that the sky is blue, the sky is green. And you go back and forth and back and forth. So what do you want to be true in that moment? I'll tell you what I would want to be true. I would want to be able to spend time with whoever was in front of me who believed the sky was green. And maybe the only way I can get there, because my opinion is so strong and I just know I'm right that it's blue, is to be curious. And that's why curiosity, I don't think it killed the cat. I think that it is the name of the game. I think if you can get curious about anything you feel strongly about, you can get to a place of opening your mind to another reality. And I would say that this happened for me a long time ago. I thought, why does everybody else get life and I don't? Like, why is it that everybody else seems to do just fine? First of all, I was comparing my inside, their outside to my inside. But more than that, there
Mm,
was a knowing deep within me that this wasn't true and this was crazy. And why are we all believing these things? And why would we want to believe in strict religion if it made us go to war? It just, the logic was faulty to me. And I thought,
mhm.
I'm just a broken human because I can't do this.
That's so sad.
Well, no, but that's what
That's,
put me on my path.
oh, right. Well, it's so sad that as a young person, you would think you're faulty because
I did, yeah.
because you didn't agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, there were so many things that in my experience as a child, I looked at it and I said, "Hey, everybody, this is crazy." This is what my thoughts would say. And sometimes I'd say it out loud. This is crazy. And everybody around me was acting like it wasn't crazy. And so I'm comparing their outside to my inside. And I'm thinking, well, what's wrong with me then? If they don't think this is crazy and I clearly believe it's crazy, then what's wrong with me? Why am I not doing life well? And what do I
Mm,
need to do? How can I change so that I can make life work? And what I realized is life was working for me, but I was taught the wrong way. I used to sell yellow pages, and the phone company was like the big deal, right? And so I worked for the other guy, the independent publisher that came in. And the way the phone books were, they literally were so confusing. You'd have the white pages, and that was broken down into zip code, which was then alphabetical. And then you had the government pages, which were also white, but they were separated with some blue pages. And then you had the yellow pages, which were completely different, and they were categorized and then alphabetical. And so it was this big thing. And so I went, literally, the independent publisher made something that was really easy. Everything was A to Z. So all you
mm.
needed was the name of a person or a business, anything, and you could just open the book. And so I would show the people, and this is what they would look at me and say. They'd look at me and go, "That's confusing." And I'd say, "No, it's not." You've been taught a confusing way. So you believe that the easy way, the way I'm trying to show you, is hard. Isn't that funny?
How many areas in our lives individually, how many areas in your life are you confused because of what the world has taught you?
Mm-hmm.
And collectively, how many areas in our life or in our lives
Mm-hmm.
are we confused because of what the world has taught us?
That's right. And none of us got by without the world teaching us. Because guess what? We were born and we were little and we needed someone to tell us what things were and how it worked. I'm new here, everybody. Show me around. And the world showed you
And
around.
our sweet little hearts are so open.
I know. And so we said, okay, is that a car? Great. I love cars. So glad they're here. Like we just accepted what was given to
Yeah.
us. So David, that statement that the world doesn't work that way, is that true? Or is it just that we were taught the world doesn't work that way? So we believe it and therefore we attract it. And that's our experience.
Y'all, she's talking about the question that we talked about in the last episode
Yes.
about intuition.
Yes.
So be sure to check that out if you haven't already.
Yes, and while we're at it, we've been doing a lot of create mores, but I just want to remind everybody to please, pretty please, like and follow our page on Facebook and YouTube. We are growing our audience, and you are the ones who are helping us do that. So thank you in advance, and thank you post doing it if you've already done it.
Yes, thank you. So, one of the things, my favorite things that Abraham and I like to listen to Abraham, Esther Hicks, to get my information on the law of attraction. It actually, when I listen to what they have to say, it makes me more peaceful. If I'm spiraling out of control, that is actually literally what I go to when I'm spiraling out of control, is listening to Abraham.
Yeah. And I'll say too that all you have to do for that is go to YouTube, type in Esther Hicks, Abraham, and there's going to be all kinds of videos. And one of the ones that's really helpful is that, there are questions. People in the audience stand up and ask a question. Well, yeah. Okay, yeah. Law of attraction, right, right. I create my reality with my thoughts and my feelings. But what about this? Right? So it's a bunch of those kinds of questions, and the response to them is perfect. And you'll go, oh. And it's the moment where my client who sat across from me would go, oh, this is easier. It's like it's that
Mhm.
moment where you're like, oh, okay. I see it now. I see what you're saying.
And I've listened to it for years, and I still, sometimes don't get it. I mean, I think that you'll hear that if you listen to anybody talking. Now, you do have to get over one little piece of it, because
Mhm.
it's the way that it's delivered.
Don't tell him. Don't tell him. You know why I don't want you to tell him? It's
Why?
because I didn't know the thing you're about
Oh,
to
okay.
say. And that's why I got on board. If I had known ahead of time the thing you're about to say, I would have been closed off to it. And maybe this is the advanced class, so maybe these folks won't be, but just in case, let them figure it out. That's my suggestion.
Okay. So, the other important thing that I wanted to say about this is, if you are struggling and can't accept, you can't change it,
Accept it.
you can't leave. If you are struggling and you can't accept it, you can't change it, and you can't leave the situation, then, well, take a nap.
Yes.
That's what Abraham would tell you to do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Take a
Just
nap.
take a nap.
Yes. Yes.
That gets a little tricky though, because you don't need to avoid the rest of your life.
Right. How long's this nap, Mayor?
But a short little nap might be enough. Meditating,
Yes.
focusing in on gratitude. Those are some ways that you can shift your mindset to get to a better place.
Yes. And stop thinking about that thing. Whatever it takes for you to stop thinking about that thing, do that. For some of us, it's take a nap. For others of us, it's take a dog. For others of us, it's talking to a friend. For others of us, it's putting stand up comedy on. That's mine. And making ourselves laugh. And then once you're in a different feeling space, my suggestion is get curious. So what you do is say, I wonder what my next thought will be. I wonder. And even once you have the thought, remain in that curious place. That curious place sustained will be your ticket.
So curiosity didn't kill the cat, it gave the cat another life.
Right. In the same world the cat was in before. So the world doesn't have to change. Nothing has to change, but our thoughts and our feelings about it. And ironically, paradoxically, as soon as we do that, the thing changes.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Hey, Mayor, did we tell them to like and subscribe?
I think so.
Okay. And follow. There's a follow.
Oh, and share it. I mean,
Ah,
share it with people if you're getting something out of it.
high five. And if you share it, we will give you a shout out. So don't be scared. You have been listening to True and Unpolished, the podcast. Let's see what happens next.